I mean, the pressing plants were just so backed up for everybody, weren't they? Unless you were Adele, apparently. But yeah, no, we absolutely knew it would be worth the wait, though. And when we started this project, we all love analog recordings and the limitations that come with that, and the warmth of recording to tape. So we record everything live to tape with our band, and always will continue to do that because we love that warmth. And we just felt like waiting for the vinyl, for it to be pressed onto wax, would honor that warmth, because that's another warm sound. And having, we're all record collectors, we all love being in the record shop together, and we spent many hours doing that. And just the idea of not having something on wax for our first record, that was just like tear inducing. And we were just super lucky that we have a label that's very vinyl focused, and also understood that we didn't want to just wait before we could put music out. You get signed, you're all excited, and you want to share what you've been working on, and you want to make a presentation of who you are now in that space and time. And so he allowed us to put things out in a non-linear fashion, which was really great for us. So we were able to put out Forget Me Not and Blow My Mind as our first 45. And go from there, really. And when the record arrived, it was a as our label head said to us, it is a record of what you did when you did it. And it was so fun. It's been so fun presenting it to the world, and we just couldn't believe it on tour. That was our first headlining tour, and we weren't really sure what to expect. We had amazing crowds all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. It was truly something to behold. And at one point, I was looking at Naya, and she's looking at Sabrina, and Sabrina's looking at me, who's singing out of tune? And then we realized, we turned to the audience, and it was the audience, bless them, singing along out of tune. And it was throwing us off. And it was the first time something like that happened, where we realized, wow, people know these songs, and they have their own personal relationship with these songs, and they're not ours anymore. They're just everyone's. And that was really cool. That was a moment for me where I was like, okay, I'm where I'm meant to be, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing, even if it's hard to pay rent sometimes still. You're on the path, and that's the gift that you still keep chasing.
From my perspective, it appears like things happen pretty quickly for you, in terms of like actually bring it all together. The contributors on the first record are pretty incredible for a debut.
That's a community, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, we're so lucky that that we found this community, mostly in Brooklyn, Staten Island. Like, we found this community and have been actually knowing these guys for a while, and just kind of have been on different projects with them, or just knowing them from supporting another artist or what have you. So we kind of, I don't know if it's like minds or like energy, like spirits, like tastes that kind of drew us together. And we were just so lucky that that they, wanted to work with us, and I think all were inspired by each other and continue to be inspired by each other. So we feel very lucky in that way.
It's cool as well because there's three of us, and we've all been friends for a long time, and we've all been in the city. I've been there now close to 9 years, and I'm the newest import. So the girls have nearly double, at that time, been here since they were kiddywinks. And it just feels like you grow up in a space, and I was at music school here, and Sabrina was in loads of bands here. And even when I first arrived, I was in a couple of punk bands with Sal P from Liquid, and that had a whole community. And everybody's kind of struggling, trying to make sense of their art and find their own voice at the same time as trying to, make rent too. And you kind of enter into this unspoken world of barter and helping each other. And the people that are around you that lift you, you stay with them longer, and you do vocals on their song, or you do some backgrounds, and you say, no, don't worry about paying me, And then next thing you know, they're giving you a really good rate, or trading you for something else on your record. And it kind of just, or you play it to your friend and they're like, oh, let me have a chance to mix this. Or I want to add some production to this. And you're like, no, it's okay. And they're like, no, please let me have a go. And then they bring it back to you and you're like, okay, that's way better than anything I was going to do. and it just kind of goes like that.
And I will say, I think, not only the community in Brooklyn, but we've also roped in our family members into completing the record, from the artwork to, my sister plays violin on the last track called Better Man. So yeah, it was a real familial and community effort for sure.
Pia, you bring up an interesting point, and I've heard a lot of people speak on both sides of this, whether or not when you're starting it out, whether or not it's a good idea to do things for free. I certainly understand the, feeling like you have to. And I did that, as a writer, I did that a lot myself. I lose money doing this podcast. So I'm definitely very sympathetic to that idea. But I've also heard the conversation on the other side that, potentially you could devalue your art if you're giving it away.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where the element of trust comes in. I really believe, and, a lot of friends that we know, they now have a rule with each other. They say, look, nobody trade anything. You just pay me and I'll pay you. And then there's no kind of blurred lines. And we figured out pretty early on that it's much better for us to pay something, even if it's a nominal and it's maybe not as much as they would like. It's better for us to find somebody that we can pay what we can afford. They can accept what we can afford. So we also have the right, or, don't feel too guilty about saying, can I make these tweaks? Can you come back and you need to make edits? And you have a sense of control over how far you can push something. You want to honor people's time. And also you want to honor your own craft and such like too. But the trust element for us was that we were working with friends who were really old friends, and it felt like a safe enough space for us to be able to do things for trades it was natural. It wasn't so transactional. It was just a kind of a natural evolution of things. And like I said, the friendship came first, but I certainly wouldn't advise young musicians to go around and do things for free. I think that's not good for the whole industry, especially in the city. And I think that, people deserve to be compensated. Otherwise, we're a dying profession. And it's important that we're acknowledged. It's so important. Other countries, having spent 5 years in France, it was so hard to come to the States and see that there's no arts council, there's no arts funding, and there's no programs that support young musicians who are successful, who maybe they had 5 really good gigs at really well-paid jobs, and then there's a dry spell. In France, they match whatever you had for those months, and they give you a steady baseline of benefits to see you through, because they understand the importance of governments serving the purpose of patronage, so that it isn't just of the elite to choose what art looks like and what culture looks like and how diverse that becomes, especially in a place like America where, poverty is a race issue too. That is so inextricably linked that you can't escape that. And so to deny government funding to arts is to say, we don't really care about having a diverse representation of art and culture, and we're just going to pick and choose the parts that we want and spit the rest out, or consume it for ourselves and absorb it. And I think that's just a travesty. Sorry, I've changed the tone, haven't I?
Let's get into that. I mean, I think what's also tied to that, and maybe something that we don't talk about enough in this context, is the way in which social media has trained us to give things away for free, to give content away for free, to give songs away for free, to basically to prop up these big corporations.
I mean, I think it's up again. Is it social media, or is it the government's unwillingness to step in and, whatever the industry has been, and now for us, maybe it is more online and technology focused, and social media is a part of that. But, we had the need for unions. We have the need for government intervention always, in my opinion, to help oversee things in a more social democratic nature. To leave things up to we have something called Ofcom, which is looking after the communications and mobile telephones services in the UK. And I was like, so where's the Ofcom? And everyone's like, nah, that doesn't exist here. And slowly but surely things are happening. For me, streaming is a big thing, but it's not the streaming suspects' fault, I like to call them. It's not their fault. They're private enterprises, they're corporate enterprises that are running on a capitalist model. That's how they're going to operate. Why would we expect anything less from them? The streaming royalties baseline and the numbers need to be set by governments, and that's where I see there's a lack of effort being made. And I feel like the lobbying isn't as vehement and powerful because people feel more defeated. And I think it's really hard to expect musicians to lobby successfully because they're just treading water. So to ask them to take that on as well without big union support is virtually impossible. And you want your ASCAPs and your BMIs to step in and help with that, and you want some good, strong politicians who want to take on the arts. As
I think it's the same in most industries now, is that the big dinosaurs can't keep up with the fast moving pace of technology. So it's like all the laws they're just nowhere near caught up to where they need to be to protect people and to protect the arts and to protect, data, our personal data and all that stuff. We're nowhere near that point. And hopefully sometime soon, I know people are aware of this, but I don't know how. Maybe companies are making too much money off of it for them not to put the laws in place and put the policies in place to protect. So I don't know when that's going to change, but I think it is slowly, but I think in our lifetime, it needs to be a little more drastic, or something needs to happen.
I think they'll start trading in data markets. Like right now, the company's already doing it. They're selling our data to each other, right? And, Spotify's linked with Facebook and linked with Instagram. And, who's to say what will happen with Twitter now with all that malarkey. But there isn't a marketplace where us as individuals or consumers or whatever you want to call us can participate in that marketplace. Like, what if we were in control of selling our own data? I'm not saying this is a perfect world, because that scares me too, but maybe that's still more equitable if we actually had a say or a place in the market and we could decide which parts of our data were being sold and whether we wanted to capitalize on that. At least that would seem more equitable, some sort of hand in it to me. But then again, is that just leading you down the garden path of encouraging more data transaction?
I want to not push back, but add to what Naya was saying. And this is partially comes from the fact that I'm a technology journalist by trade. So I cover a lot of this stuff, but I think you're right in that the government itself can't keep up with innovation. We're seeing that in a lot of places. I see that a lot in patents. They just don't really understand how and what to grant. But I'm also a lot more cynical when it comes to these sorts of things, because I look at, and I'm very much gonna this conversation, but there was just the Congress failed to pass 7 sick days for rail workers. I also just think that there's just a basic level of like human decency that just does not exist in certain circles.
Yeah. Would agree.
Is there an extent to which, I guess, approaching what you do pragmatically involves this understanding that there is a realistic possibility that you might not be able to ever make a real living just on music?
All I know is that, the three of us are going to keep creating no matter what for years to come. And I've kind of, I don't know, I'd like stand strong in that. I think if at the end of the day we need to, still have our little side jobs or side hustles, then so be it. We're still going to keep creating. And, the fact that we get like 0.003 cents a song on streaming, like, hopefully one day that'll change. But for right now, like, we're still going to keep doing it. If anything, Spotify is like sharing our music with people in all over the world, which is something that we wouldn't have been able to do on our own. So things ebb and flow. Hopefully things change for the better. And hopefully we can do this, and as our full-time thing forever and ever. But, I think for me, it's just, I think I'll always be creating music no matter what.
But also it is different for us, like it's taken us a long time to get where we are. And I feel we're the lucky ones, because we just came back from a tour and we've had loads of people coming to shows and supporting and buying vinyl. And that is so important. We're so lucky that people still want to buy records and that we can make a living on the road doing that and selling our music that way and performing and enjoying it and people appreciating and respecting ticket prices. And for us, we feel very lucky that we're on this path where it is. I feel worse for the younger generations, the teenagers who are coming up in the music business who maybe don't understand how they can make a kind of career out of it. And, when I was growing up, it was never in doubt that if that's what you wanted to do, you could sustain a good life. And you never imagined you'd have to have more than one job. You just knew it would be hard to get there, but you thought once you got there, you'd be okay.
I feel like Naya has something to say about that.
I was going to say, I think the younger ones are going to figure it out. They're so savvy with the, with the internet and selling, with. I think the younger ones have figured out how to not have a day job and how to make their personalities and sell themselves on Instagram and TikTok and all. I feel like they, as influencers, they know how to be influencers. And I think that is really big. It's not necessarily natural for me to do that kind of stuff, to put myself out there like that. And I'm used to just, being on the stage and that kind of thing. But I feel like the younger generation is pretty savvy, and it just will look completely different.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, good point.
It will look completely different.
It almost takes a different part of your brain to be able to go up and perform in front of people, versus exposing yourself in this very different way. Like, just because you're open and have that thing inside you that lets you stand up in front of people. And like, honestly, singing is one of the most vulnerable things you can do, but that doesn't necessarily translate into, I don't know, being good at Twitter.
Right. Exactly.
Don't look on Twitter account.
It has been a learning curve for us, like trying, just like keeping up with all the social media stuff we have to, keep up with. Yeah, we're learning new things every day. Over the pandemic, I had to learn how to use one of the DAWs, like Pro Tools and Logic, so that we could edit our own vocals. We're constantly like teaching ourselves how to just get shit done, really. Like video editing, video concepting, just like anything and everything, really.
Yeah.
And I think an element that maybe we're forgetting about here too. I mean, Piya alluded to the obviously the broad national lack of a social safety net that we have in the US, which is very much the case. But on top of that, and this is something that like I often explain to people as it pertains to my own career, is that there's zero safety net in New York City. Like, you can't, it's so expensive and it's so hard to live here that the idea of really taking the leap is terrifying.
And yet here we still are. I mean, I always say this as a terrible analogy, really, but it's sort of like New York can be like a bad boyfriend. 1 minute, it's like hurling abuse at you. And the next minute it's like, I love you and I'll make all your dreams come true. And you don't know whether you're coming or going sometimes. As corny as it sounds, I've lived in France, I've lived in Spain, I've lived in England, my whole life predominantly in England, but I wouldn't leave New York now. I just absolutely love it. There's so much going on. And when you find your rooting in here, especially in the music scene, I think it's impossible to find another city in the world that I can imagine being as diverse with the type of level of musicianship that you find in this city. And I'm from London, and that's not to that we don't have a rich and amazing culture and musicianship and community, but it's even my best friends who play music professionally in London will say the same thing. But yeah, when you get to New York, you have the same community, but like it's 20 times as big in a smaller neighborhood diameter area. And that kind of melting pot is so wonderful for the type of music that we make. I mean, it's how we met each other, really. That is the city that brought us together, and the vibrancy and all the different energies, and that allows us to just pour whoever we are from our different backgrounds, and with all the crossover and all the diversity within ourselves, be it all classical music, Bollywood, all the things that I love, and same for the two other ladies. We just pour that into our music, and it sort of becomes genreless. And I still come back to the influences I feel from New York when I first landed, meeting Sal P from Liquid and all these older people. There's this amazing community of musicians that are ageless. It doesn't matter what age you are, people are still making music with each other, and that's very different to the scene in London. It's very much about people who are your contemporaries that you're playing with. And so this was really cool to see. And this downtown culture in particular, where you've got, he was talking about times where they're like a punk band and they'd be playing with ESG, and then they'd have, Arthur Russell and all these classical dancers influencing them, and just this amazing, and the hip hop scene, and this beautiful kind of crossover of everybody influencing each other. And I feel like that culture still exists in New York. I know there's always a golden age to look back to, and it's probably not what it once was if you talk to the previous generations. But for me, it felt very much like, wow, this is incredible. You know, there's just such a diverse range of people to reach out to, and everyone's accepting of each other. You're not siloed or kind of cast into like, oh, you sing this type of music, you stay with those people, and we do this over here. It's just everyone's sharing and playing together.
I think it's Sabrina and Piya. Like you have an especially charmed New York City story.
It really is. Yeah, we met in our building in the Lower East Side, 72 Orchard Street, back, gosh, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago now. But Piya had moved into the building above me, the apartment directly above me with her.
Much to your chagrin, because I'd be stomping around late at night.
Yes,
she couldn't get
stomping around and singing very, very loudly. You can hear everything through those thin walls and the air vents and through the doors. So I knew she was a singer. Before I met her, I knew she was a singer.
Songwriting sessions at night, okay? They're the best.
But yeah, of course. So then we, finally met and became friends, and that's how I met Naya. And yeah.
I would hear Sabrina as well in the mornings early. So after my late night writing session, I don't know if you were getting me back subconsciously, or you just do your warm-ups in the morning, don't you? But her shower is above my, the apartment. Like you could hear everything because it's a creaky old tenement building. So it's got like gaps in the floorboards, and her, my floor is her ceiling. And if there's gaps, we're in the same room, aren't we? And I could hear her doing her warm-ups at like 8 a.m. before she was going to work. And I'm like, oh no.
I will say, somebody who lives on the first floor, that Piya had the advantage in that case, because you do have the ability to stomp.
Are you kidding me? 100%. I definitely
stomper. She is a stomper. I'm sorry, Piya.
Thank you. Okay.
You walk with those heels, girl. You dig them right into that floor.
Thank you, Naya. Oh my God, I definitely lost sleep all those years for sure.
In the end, she won me over because she came and bought some cookies when we to properly introduce. Probably thought, well, if I can't beat her, I might as well join her. And then I left her a bottle of bubbles, but we still hadn't seen each other. We just knew each other were singers. And then eventually we had a mutual friend was like, you guys have to know each other. You're both singers. And then I think we just had like a writing session just for fun, just like as a kind of like, I think we were lamenting about some bad boyfriend I'd had, and she was laughing about some guy she was seeing, and we just started writing funny joke songs. That was literally the first song we ever wrote, was like a joke song about silly boyfriends. And then we were like, this is actually kind of good. This is fun. And but Naya and I also had an equally fun story. We met in Harlem at a party through mutual friends as well. And it was this beautiful singer gave a show, and we were all inspired afterwards. And all these women came up to the rooftop and just to celebrate and like digest this amazing house show we'd had. And then everyone's just like, oh, I'm a singer too, and starts singing together and harmonizing and like little birds on the rooftop as well. So it just, the minute we all met each other, I guess it was like the sound and the singing started happening straight away, didn't it?
Sure did.
Piya's from London. Where's everybody else from?
I'm from the DC area.
And I'm from upstate New York, from Rochester.
Rochester in particular makes sense, obviously, coming down to the city. But what specifically, what brought everybody here? Was it music?
Music, yeah. I used to be in a singing group a couple singing groups ago. I used to be in my first singing group. We actually moved from Maryland, DC area to New York to pursue our dreams. And then I went to the New School University in New York. So music definitely drew me in.
You studied music at New School?
Jazz and contemporary music, yeah.
Was that helpful?
Oh, yeah, because, who went to that school, Robert Glasper was graduating the year I came in there, like Jesse Boykins III, like my friend Daniel Jones, the Strickland brothers, like were all there when I was there. So it was like the best community, and even the teachers were still gigging musicians. So it was just a really great place to be. I think Bilal had graduated the year before I came, so I was so upset. But he did sit in one of my classes, my improv class. He came and sat in, and we all went in an improv circle. It was really, really, really cool.
That's cool.
So yeah, definitely worth it, just because of the network and the teachers. I had a vocal coach that changed my life. Like, she totally stripped me of the way that I had been singing all my life and built me up from the bottom up. Like, I literally in her class did not sing a song. It was all about placement and understanding my voice, and I just did warm ups the entire time I was with her. But it changed my life for the better. So yeah, it was definitely worth it.
I very much am not a singer. I'm always interested in that. What do you mean? You know, when you say you were a different kind of singer, or you were singing differently, what was the difference?
I had grown up singing and because singing is really muscle memory. So I had been using a placement in this area. Let's just say placement in this area.
She's pointing to her face.
I'm pointing to all of my sinuses, all this, the uvula, all this stuff. I had been singing how I was bringing my air up, how I was straining. I probably was belting in a way that wasn't healthy and left me with a limited range because I was not singing correctly. So she basically made me forget how to sing that way and built me up from a different placement. And in order to find this placement, like, she had diagrams, she had visualization tools, she had all that kind of stuff to help me find the exact placement where she wanted me to be. And even when I first started that, it was still hard. I couldn't get the sound that I was happy with. And so it kind of took years for me to kind of just be with my voice and be with myself to figure out the way that I wanted to sound. It takes a lot of being with your voice and, like, intimately, and just being willing to step outside of your comfort zone and try different ways of doing things. So she just really helped me with that.
Sabrina, you moved to the city for music?
I did. Yeah. I guess I grew up in the suburbs of Rochester and just always, for some reason, knew that I wanted to be in New York, like, from a young age. I think I clung to the fact that my dad's from Queens. A lot of my family members, like his parents and his grandparents, and same on my mom's side, have roots to Queens and Brooklyn in particular. So it was just in my, I don't know, it was just in me that I knew I wanted to be here. I knew I was going to find the love of my life here, which sounds cliche. I knew I was going to find my musical community. And, it definitely took me a while to find that, but it finally happened, and I could not be, more grateful for finding these two, and just, I don't know, just being able to do what we love now in a way that just feels so natural, and it's just so effing fun.
Thanks for taking me out of my emo moment. I was like, oh, I might cry, and then she's like, effing fun. All right, okay, here we go. That's the New Yorker in there.
Yeah, I went to Syracuse, and every summer I would find an internship, like random, like paid little things just so I could be here. And then finally graduated and just moved here straight away and kind of haven't left.
I think Piya alluded to this a little bit, but I'm always interested to get your take. I think I know the answer from all three of you, but whether it's necessary to move to a big city, especially a city like New York, which again is for like a lot of reasons very difficult to make a living in. Those young artists that Naya was alluding to earlier, would you recommend moving to, whether it's like a New York or LA or London?
I don't think everyone needs to be so city centric at all. I think there's so much value in having space and time and using the community that you have and the support networks that you have, and give yourself a break. I honestly, if I had known what it would be moving to New York, I wouldn't have done it. I didn't move here for music, actually. I worked in politics for many years. I always wanted to be doing music full time, but kind of just also just felt like I needed to see out my career working with various politicians, including the leader of the Green Party. And I was in Parliament in her office for many years. I worked for NGOs. And there was 2 terms of the Tories, that's the Conservative Party, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I did not want to be in England under another Conservative government. I was a policy officer at the time, and it's just, you're redundant because everything you write, they just take it and turn it into their own nonsense. And so I felt like I had to go and do something else. And I was born in the States. I have dual nationality. As I always tell the girls, my mum's always like, 2 passports and still nobody wants to marry you. I have to go and use this and go and see what I could do in New York. And homelessness is a huge problem here. So I was working for a think tank called the Institute for Children, Poverty and Homelessness. And they're based in the East Village. They're an amazing organization. And then joined this punk band I was telling you about with Sal P, which is like a collective almost. And then Naya and I met some other people. Naya and I joined another band, and that band got signed to a very cool label run by Leon Michaels, who really changed my life and kind of just gave me so much encouragement and the chance to like sing in Hindi and find my own voice and be comfortable with being who I was. And then from there, never really looked back. And as soon as I met Sab, it was just like this meeting of minds, and I knew that Naya would love her as much as I did. And it's just been so true for us, hasn't it? It's just like, when you have 2 friends who you're like, I love you both, and I know you're going to love each other even more than you love me. That's pretty much the way it went. So, but yeah, I don't think anyone needs to move to a big city in order to make their art at all. I think that's kind of an obnoxious idea that people need to be city centric. Like we were talking about the diversity, and that's to do with community and experience as well. And especially there are so many tools online and there's so many ways to make music. For me, I thrive when I'm around the energy of people, and I don't write songs by myself that sound half as good as the songs I write when I'm with other people and sharing energy and bringing something to the table that they're receiving well, and that encourages me. And I need that validation in the room, but also like you want that joy, that thing of being close to people. And if you can find that in your local communities or wherever you are, that's an amazing thing. Not everybody needs to do that. My former partner, he really thrives on making his songs in a very quiet space by himself. He needs a lot of alone time. And he's jealous of me and I'm jealous of him that, like, he could sit by himself and come up with something. No way, I need the girls. It's not going to come otherwise. Like, how does it just come out of you by yourself, mate? But, everybody's different and you feed off different things. So yeah, I would never advise anybody to move to a big city without some sort of safety net or game plan, because it can be so hard and that could discourage you. That could be the most discouraging thing.
You bring up an interesting point too, as far as being in the room. And this is something that has always fascinated me, and I can't quite figure it out. I don't know, maybe somebody can explain this in a way that my dumb non-musical brain can get. But how is 2-part and 3-part harmony different? And just in terms of the experience of singing together, the impact that it has. What is bringing, I guess the third person would have been Naya in this case specifically. What is bringing that third person into the group? How does that sort of change and I guess elevate the dynamic?
I mean, it's fantastic. It's just way better. Like, it's like another, it's another texture. It's another, like, we can essentially create chords like with each other. Like, it's 3-part, just, I don't know. There's so much more you can do with the vocal arrangement. There's so many more interesting layers you can throw in a dissonant note. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like, it's more challenging maybe to create something. Not really. For us, it just like sort of pours out, but like, yeah, I just think it's a little more interesting and it's just really fun when like those 3 parts really lock in, That's what I would say.
I really like what you said about the textures. For me, that is really what's most beautiful about having 3 different textures, singing 3 different notes and giving 3 different perspectives, if you will, with our voices or feel or vibe. It just, and the chemistry that we're able to have with one another is just quite enjoyable. Like, it just makes it really fun, and just the synergy that we feel when we're on stage or when we're writing or arranging really kind of just is like with the, I don't want to say cookie crumb, but it just keeps us going, and it just pulls us, and it just encourages us to try new things and to try different things. I think that's the power of three, to be honest.
Yeah, who says three's a crowd? No, absolutely. Do you know what? We all actually grew up singing three-part harmonies. You know, might not have been with each other, but that's the first thing. I was in choir, so were the other two. You know, and it's, you know, female choirs for me in particular. I'm not sure if you guys had mixed choirs, but it's always that soprano, mezzo soprano, alto vibe from day dot. And there's something so fun about not having to be in a place where you have to learn the parts. You know, I'm the weakest link when it comes to, you know, harmonies and arrangements. I think Sabrina and I, it just comes so naturally. And, you know, Sab in particular does a lot of the arranging for Prism. She did a lot of all the arrangements pretty much for the harmonies. And for the second record, it's more, we've been writing together in the room more, and, you know, just by nature of it not being COVID and the way that we wrote. So it just pours out of everyone naturally, and everyone just finds their kind of tone and complements each other. And it's just so refreshing to not have any competitiveness. That's like, it's just like this encouragement and support, and we can just interchange and interweave, and you can finish a song so much quicker. You know, you have an idea, and if you have to graft at an idea for a long time, you could lose interest and just walk away from that song. If it doesn't feel good, you know, it's hard to push yourself to finish things sometimes. And when you have your two best mates essentially making everything to sound so much better, that's so encouraging. It makes you want to keep finishing everything really fast, and what are we going to do tomorrow? And it sounds a bit corny, doesn't it? But it's taken a long time to find that in my life, so I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed to say that.
Does everybody sort of have their natural range, and does that determine like where you fit into the puzzle? The
two of them can just sing so high. So, I mean, there's no chance that I can sing that high anymore. Once upon a time. But so you know, there's no way. And it's so amazing because sometimes if I want to, I can hear something, you know, but you can't get it out. And it's just incredible to have. It's like having the tool of an instrument, but it's your best friend's voice. and then so it's just like you can finish and flourish things. But so I think, you know, you two have a pretty similar range, so high and so low, like really diverse. Actually, goes all the way up the scale. They just give me the low parts because I can't do the high ones.
Well, also Piya has this beautiful warmth to her voice that just that suits the low.
Oh, yeah. That's what I can do, but thanks, Naya. That was sweet.
True.
You can't compliment them for 5 minutes and then not accept a compliment back. That's not okay.
Thank you.
I'm buying it. You can hear it. It's true. It's true.
There's a very funny and I think very like real Onion headline from a number of years ago. It was something along the lines of ska band outnumbers audience, which is like obviously something that you risk when there's a lot of people, and it's so it's the three of you, and then is it 8-piece on top of the three?
No, with us.
Okay, it's 8 together, but that's still a really big band, and that's still a really I guess big business to kind of orchestrate.
It is a lot of work, but the people that we've chosen to work with make it easier. You have to find your people, don't you? And we're super lucky. We've just had so many friends who've known us for a long time and know how we operate. And yeah, it's a big band, but it's also to us, we would never compromise that sound. Never. You know, would we ever? We take a lot of analog instruments on the road. I don't think there's that many touring bands that carry a whirly and and a clavinet.
Is it yours that goes on tour?
Yeah, you've seen it. There she is. She's given me a few problems recently, but she's back in the mix now. Thank you to my dear friends.
I mean, yeah, I think we've just worked at this for so long, and we finally found our sound and our people, and it's like we don't want to compromise that. We don't want to sing to a track. We don't want to, we want to make it sound the way it was recorded, essentially. And yeah, it definitely, creates some challenges here and there, but we've kind of committed all to sort of accepting that so that we can put our best foot forward, really. I
mean, I'm guessing there's an extent to which financially that you have to be very picky about the shows that you choose and the tour that you do when you've got that many people involved.
We're so lucky. We actually just signed with a booking agent who's been a long friend of mine for years. And it's like, when your friends are like the top of their profession and you never would ask them favors, you would never suggest to them, hey, would you take me on? Because it's like cringe. They don't want to be asked. And you just know in your heart.
You don't want them to feel like they're obligated to do you a favor.
No, and it creates so much awkwardness between friendships because, like, people don't want to feel used. That's the last thing. So never, ever would I ask. But, you're secretly hoping in your heart, well, one day maybe I'll be good enough that he'll ask us. And it happened last week when we signed with a rival artist and our good friend John Bongiorno, who, Naya and I met him years ago because we were backing singing for Chicano Batman, which is this great band if you don't know them. Yeah, and they're like our brothers, and they just adore Sab as well now, and they're like brothers to her too. And we co-wrote Pink Roses on Prism with Bardo, who's the lead singer and just kind of maverick music maker, really. And it's just, it's been an amazing journey. And like I said, it all comes down to the community again. And John is so sweet and so amazing at his job and looks after so many incredible bands, and some of whom we're really close to as well. And we've watched their careers grow, and they often credit him for having changed their lives. And he's so thoughtful about where he puts you on the road and doesn't want you to burn out, but also knows where to push. And so we have a really heavy year ahead of us on the road, exciting opportunities, but also picking dates that work around everybody's lifestyle and going to make it work. Just excited for us.
I wasn't familiar with the Guerrilla Girls until I was reading up on you. It seems like a fascinating group. What was the sense of kinship there? What drew you to them?
Well, we were introduced to one of the original 5 Guerrilla Girls, and she was just, we started hanging out with her, and she was telling us all these really interesting stories about sort of, the work that they were doing and how they were using art for activism back in New York City, in the 80s. So it was just super inspiring, and her alias is Alice Neal, but she was also in the music scene. She was friends with Talking Heads and Tom Tom Club, and she just sort of I guess really inspired us, and just hearing their story. And I think Piya always says this, we wanted to say something more in our music, and it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's kind of, we wanted to take our learnings from the generation before us and use our voice in our own way. So they were particularly an inspiration for Forget Me Not, and especially the music video that we did for that one.
I think that advocacy piece within our work and our music, we don't want it to sound like we're giving anyone a sermon. It should be uplifting, and we want to use our voice for good and for the things that we want to say. And that's the most powerful platform we have. And as women, we've worked really hard to be able to get up on the stage and have that space to say what we believe in, and kind of campaign through our music without it seeming like something, like a boring policy meeting. It's much more fun when it's a disco song and getting everyone dancing, and maybe there's a message there that will reach people.